Okay, everyone, get yourselves ready. We have about 2 minutes, 42 seconds until X Squared Radio goes live. We're so thankful you could be here with us tonight. It's the last Sunday in April, and then May begins. Oh, it's going to be good. It's going to be exciting. Just to give you a little preview, we're going to be live in about 2 minutes, 21 seconds, according to my show clock. So hang in there, get your beverage, get your popcorn. It's going to be a great ride tonight. Just checking into my chat to make sure we're live. If I get my chat, I should get my chat right here. It'll show me if I'm live right now or not. We'll be bringing in the studio in 1 minute 50 seconds, so hang in there. So glad you could be here with us tonight. April's been one heck of a month. I got to tell you all about it. The 5D events in Las Vegas was something else. 44 speakers and myself. It was fun. A lot of fun. A lot of walking. But the weather was nice, about 90 degrees and dry. So we will dial the studio here in 1 minute 20 seconds. It's pretty good. Just wanted to be sure that I'm live. You know, sometimes we have problems with YouTube live feed, so this time we're just making it go a little smooth. I'll move my picture off and we'll make the transition in a minute. You can always chat. I can see it right there on the screen. About 52 seconds and we'll be on. Yeah, you noticed that, didn't you? A little bit of 1 week beard going here. No big deal. Just a little hermit relaxation of the face. We'll be smooth when we have to be. Sound check. It sounds good. Just checking my remote out there on the West Coast. Making sure my sound is good on the YouTube Live. Not too quiet. Everything's good. You don't hear any wind blowing or anything like that. I think I got that problem solved. Okay. 5, 4, 3, and we're dialing.
Right, one of the millions of children born to parents suffering from the sheeple virus. Symptoms include the inability to think for oneself, the attention span of a goldfish, and a strong belief in government and the mainstream media. It is estimated that 1 out of every 2 children are being raised by parents infected with the sheeple virus.
Good. Hopefully we keep it all running.
There is a cure.
Crashes. We should be okay.
For as little as 19 cents per day, you can become a TFR supporter and help children like me get their daily dose of truth. Together, we will make sure every child has protection from deception.
What the Rabbi Saw. Cave rescue complete. I'm Evan Haining.
She's such a kind, sweet-hearted, just a good human being. She didn't deserve to die right in front of my eyes.
In an emotional public statement, Congregation Shabbat Rabbi Israel Goldstein, blue bandages covering his hands damaged by gunfire, told a crowd in Poway, California, what he saw when a gunman entered his synagogue yesterday, killing 60-year-old Lori Kay and injuring the rabbi and 2 others.
Here is a young man standing with a rifle, pointing right at me. And I look at him. He had sunglasses on. I couldn't see his eyes. I couldn't see his soul.
19-year-old John Ernest faces first-degree murder and other charges. Police are investigating whether he is connected to an arson attack at a mosque in nearby Escondido last month. In Southern Virginia, authorities say 5 men trapped in a cave have been rescued after they became stranded underground after a heavy downpour.
There was a lot of rain in this area. It made it really slick and hard for them to sort of get out of this.
Correspondent Ryan Young reports 6 men entered Cyclops Cave near Cleveland and had planned to camp there overnight until drenching rains made it difficult for them to get out. Well, a 22-year-old managed to escape at around 2 a.m. and alerted authorities that the others were in danger. Officials say the rescued men are suffering from hypothermia and exhaustion. A day of testimony before a House committee from Attorney General William Barr on the Mueller report is now in jeopardy. Correspondent Manu Raju reports there is a dispute about the format of questioning.
Democrats want this hearing to allow for the members to talk about what is behind those black lines and allow that staff attorney to question, perhaps drill down a little further than some members would be able to. And Bill Barr is saying no, which is why Thursday's hearing suddenly is in doubt.
I'm Evan Haining.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
The wicked ones obviously under heavy Masonic influence.
Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where the past meets the future, and here the results are always positive, or at least we endeavor to make them so. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. Good to be back live. Last week I was at the 5D events in Las Vegas, Nevada, with 44 of my friends. It was a lot of fun. It wasn't very well attended. You didn't show up, but the speakers showed up, and it was good to see them and hear them speak and share stories again. And we're going to be out there again because I have some really good news. Some really good news. I got to tell you, I'm excited about it. While I was traveling through the hallway at the 5D event in Las Vegas, one of my friends handed me a secret email address, which I promptly wrote to. And they responded. And they invited me to the contact in the desert. Yeah, I'm trying to work with that wind. I'm not exactly sure what that is. Let me see if I can lower the speaker volume a little bit. See if that helps a little bit with that out there. Maybe that will reduce the windy sound that you all hear from time to time. And the secret email address led me to Contact in the Desert, and they invited me to speak. So if you have never been to Contact in the Desert, it's going to be in Indian Wells, California this year. Of course, it is the biggest event in the genre of paranormal, UFO, awakening, disclosure. It's the biggest event in the world. And yes, now I am presenting there. I'm going to be presenting the Hollow Earth theory as the main lecture and Remembering the Future as a workshop. And trust me, you have never seen anything like it before. And on a stage like that, in a venue like that, it'll change the world, especially if you're there. So what you need to do is go to the web address that's on the ad there, contactinthedesert.com. Go to the speakers tab and find me. I'm about halfway down. Click on the learn more, and get your tickets and sign up for the workshop. And by the way, if you're listening to this program tonight and you tell me at the workshop that you heard about the workshop on this program, I'm going to give you the autographed version of the book for $10. That's half off. Signed, delivered by me at the workshop. Everyone else has to pay full price. So you come up to me and tell me you heard about it on this program, and you'll save yourself $10. Best way to go. All right, let's get into it, because I want to give you the Religion of Peace report. It is, as you heard on the news, quite stunning to hear. A lot of this going on around the planet, and I mean underscore, because in the last 7 days, the Religion of Peace has conducted 32 attacks. In these 32 attacks, they have killed 350 innocent people. This is just the last 7 days, not the last year, not the last month, the last 7 days. They've killed 350 innocent people, injured 889. That is the largest number in all the years that we have been monitoring the activities of the Religion of Peace. Only 2 suicide blasts this week, not like the 4 that were conducted Easter weekend. And they've spread their mayhem across 11 countries. All of this activity brought to you by the Religion of Peace. So, my first piece tonight I entitle Watch Your Eyes. 2018 was the year of awakening. President Trump drew the deep state soldiers out into the open. We all saw that. They had to lay down their masks and pick up their swords to fight for the first time, probably since World War II. The world can now see them for who they really are. A treasonous coup was engineered and perpetrated by an army of globalists who belonged to a syndicate so rich and so ruthless that it stunned the world. Now, 2019, I have declared, is the year of light. More than 150 million people around the world are standing with President Trump and fighting the globalists. Whether they wear camo tank tops or yellow vests, they are the same. We love freedom. We love liberty. And we are prepared to defend ourselves against the Marxists who are seeking to take over our country as we speak. It is time to crank up the light of love and togetherness as we stand against the globalists for the soul of America. That's one thing Joe Biden has said right in his entire 40-year career in Washington. The one thing he has said right. This is a battle for the soul of America. It damn sure is. 2020 is going to be the year of justice. It will not be easy. Freedom is never free. When the generals of the deep state are arrested, tried, convicted, and sentenced, they will be shouting their orders from the gallows for their followers to rise up and avenge them. They will attack churches, schools, malls, and other places where innocent people gather. It will not be an easy year for many of you. Your neighbors, co-workers, and even family members may have been possessed by the propaganda of the globalists. Some people in our own chat room have succumbed to this. Do not let this weaken your resolve. Freedom and liberty must be preserved, even if it means that we must fight the most powerful intelligence force the world has ever known. We must win, or the world will be lost along with every soul upon it. The soldiers are everywhere. They are invading by the thousands every day. They are targeting our churches, synagogues, mosques, and are trying to incite a holy war. They are killing and injuring innocent people for the sheer joy of it. They rape, torture, and terrorize because it makes them happy to do it. They cannot be converted. They cannot be saved. They arrived on this world evil, they grew up evil, and they serve a dark lord who lives on this planet. This is one of many words of warning you will receive. You will need at least 2 months of transportable food and a way to filter water to drink and cook with. You will need a weapon and the training to use it. You will need to make sure you do not prepare with hatred, but rather prepare out of love for your families, for your friends, and for your neighbors. When the deep state generals are finally cornered and are about to be captured, they plan on something huge and terrible. I don't want to write it again, because your consciousness will help manifest it. We must find this weapon and disarm it, or millions could die. Keep your eyes and ears open, and if you hear anything, don't report it to the FBI or the police. You ask for an audience with your local sheriff. You show him, and only him, face to face, what you saw and where you saw it. In the meantime, you tune in here and you get squared and you go forth fearless and prepared. Those are my opening comments. You know, NASA just recorded a quake on Mars for the first time. And it said that the audio will haunt you. NASA's InSight Mars lander may have recorded its first Mars quake. Seismic tremors. Faint but unmistakable deep in the belly of the red beast. Early analysis has confirmed that the tremor did originate inside the planet as opposed to the atmospheric influences such as wind. Now seismologists are hard at work to narrow down precisely what caused it. Because you see, quakes on Mars, just like quakes on Earth, can reveal details about the planet's interior. The InSight, which landed on Mars in November last year, is a mission specifically designed to study the guts of Mars. It is equipped with a range of instruments to take measurements of the planet's temperature, its rotation, and, of course, its seismic activity. Most of the data collected by the Seismic Experiment for Interior Structure, also known as SEIS, I don't know why government people love those acronyms, but they do. Let's see, they turned it on April 6th to be Sol 128 of the InSight's mission. The instrument finally registered what the team had been looking for. The team lead, his name is Philippe Lognone. He said, "We've been waiting months for a signal like this. It's so exciting to finally have proof that Mars is still seismically active. We're looking forward to sharing detailed results once we've had a chance to analyze them." The waves of a strong interior tremor can act a little bit like a planet-sized ground-penetrating radar, only with seismic waves instead of electromagnetic waves. As these waves kind of propagate through the planet, they can slow down as they move through certain materials or bounce off others, letting seismologists infer the interior composition. It's kind of like doing a CAT scan of the planet. Well, sadly, the Sol 128 event was so faint, it could hardly tell scientists anything about the structure of Mars's interior, And here on Earth, it would have been lost among the constant grumblings of tectonic activity. But it does demonstrate that even though Mars isn't tectonically active, there is seismic activity, raising hope for a stronger tremor down the line, especially since 3 other fainter seismic signals were also recorded on Sol 105, Sol 132, and Sol 133, all in different locations. But the Sol 128 signal, as well as being stronger, is interesting for another reason. It bears a strong similarity to the seismic profile of moonquakes detected by surface seismometers between 1969 and 1977. You'll recall that when the Apollo missions began to land on the moon, the very first instruments that they put out, in fact, the first Apollo crew, were trained in seismology before they left. The astronauts were trained to set these instruments, set them up, and get them broadcasting. And these devices were stationed there by those astronauts from those Apollo missions, and that's how we know about the moonquakes. Well, just like Mars, the moon is not tectonically active. There's no plates subducting or moving around. I don't really think there are here on Earth either, but that's beside the point. It does have seismic activity that is caused by a slow, slight shrinking as the interior cools, a process that has been ongoing since its formation 4.5 billion years ago. By the way, that's the same age as the Earth. As the interior shrinks, this creates stresses in the outer crust until it eventually cracks, causing these tremors. Planetary scientists believe that the same type of process is also behind the tremors on Mars. More detections in the future and analysis of these detections will help reveal much more, of course. And now we know that this instrument works as intended. A tremendous feat of technical innovation, given how faint the tremors are. Meaning its technology, we can continue to refine into the future. And the better we get at it, the better we're able to read other planets. And we've been collecting, of course, the background noise up till now, but when we get a little kick like this, it's kind of nice to get that kind of data. In another longer range story about the moon, NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine, speaking at the 35th Space Symposium in Colorado Springs on April 9th, also discussed what he described as a 2-phase approach to the new moon exploration plan that emphasized speed first, followed by sustainability. Now, that approach would make use of the Space Launch System and, I'm happy to say, the Orion spacecraft, along with lunar landers yet to be developed and a lunar gateway project that, at least initially, might involve only a fraction of the elements previously proposed for the human-tended facility in lunar orbit. That is to say, there's a plan to build a lunar space station, much as we have the International Space Station going around Earth right now. We want to put one going around the moon, but that started out to be a rather large structure in its planning phase. And it's not unfamiliar to me. There are many machine cities like this in orbit around various planets, and even coursing around groups of asteroids as they mine the asteroids and turn them into metal and other elements that the large machine cities use to sustain themselves. Oxygen, water, titanium, aluminum, gold, things like that. They're out there in huge mountains floating through space. Most of the planets that go through space are also rogue. They don't orbit around suns. They're just big frozen planets moving through space, revolving. And it's easy to fall into orbit around these and go down to the surface and harvest them. But that being said, the project is confirmed. Let's see, Mr. Pace in his presentation said that the lunar gateway would be relatively small in its initial version. He said, I would expect to see a very minimal gateway initially in terms of supporting what we need for 2024. I see a larger, more capable gateway building out as we go toward reusability. And this is the important thing, that whether it's orbiting or whether it's on the moon, this gateway project is important because it accomplishes two things. The first is that it gives us a much heavier lift ability for constructed spacecraft. That is to say, we don't have to launch a little, 6,000-pound capsule. We can lift things 6 million pounds into space from the moon. It's easy to do, much less gravity. There's no atmosphere to worry about. There's no weather patterns to worry about. And the moon is made mostly of titanium and aluminum, which are both great minerals to have on hand. And there's some other interesting things about this Gateway project, and we won't really know more until they actually get into it. Let me check my time clock here. 7 minutes. Okay, we're good. But here's what I mean by that. A minimal gateway has raised concerns among international partners about what roles, if any, they'll have in that initial sprint to the moon. They don't want to get left behind by the mighty United States. They don't want American flags on everything and American protocols, and they're just basically janitors on the facility. Asked about that, Pace said he'd met with international partners on the issue. In the short term, the focus is building the organization that's capable of going back, he said. As the focus shifts to long-term sustainability, he said, there will be opportunities for partners to provide gateway modules and lunar landers. It's small but vital parts of the program. That emphasis on sustainability extends to the lunar surface. We need a lunar field station to conduct exploration on the lunar surface and the planet's interior, and enable multiple sites from that station. That drove the decision to make the south pole of the moon the site for that initial lunar landing. And it's important that we pick that. A lunar south pole station can be an access point for the rest of the lunar surface. There are several advantages for doing a south pole location. Number one is, you'll remember I think it was the Elcon mission. No? Okay, let me bring it up your memory up. I believe it was 2006. The Elcon mission is where they dropped a heavy slug into the polar area and spectrographically examined the it wasn't an explosion, but of course when it struck the Earth, it kicked all kinds of stuff up in the crater, from the crater that it left. And they examined it spectrographically from the Earth. They had cameras pointed at this when the slug struck the moon. And so as it went out into space, they were just looking at the dust that got kicked out into space, and that's how they were able to examine it. And the nice thing about it is water was detected, but we don't know at this time whether the water can easily be extracted and utilized to make oxygen and hydrogen peroxide. That's the fuel for our booster rockets. Now, the base can also support other research there. He says, we're going to be going for lots of reasons, of which science is but just one. But on the other hand, we want to make sure what science we do there is in fact driven by community assessments. Yeah, I think they also want to do some seriously rapid engineering. They want to make sure that they can build structures on the planet, and we have been suggesting for years that they use materials they find on the planet, that they send equipment up that can process materials on the moon into building materials like mortar, making blocks and then laying the blocks, or putting a giant gantry-style 3D printer on the moon and just printing the buildings, and then adding airlocks and portals and things like that to build them out. That's the kind of thing that could protect people from cosmic radiation. You could slightly pressurize them to 6,000-8,000 feet altitude, something like that. Perfectly comfortable for humans. The emphasis on the lunar resources prompted an audience question on why NASA last year canceled Resource Prospector an agency mission that had been under development to test the feasibility of extracting water ice. We had hoped that the project would continue, but, Obama cut the money and the program died in 2009. But Pace said its cancellation was a top-down effort and it was poorly communicated to NASA. The agency leadership, he said, understands the value of robotic precursor missions to help understand the nature and accessibility of water ice at the poles, which can also support opportunistic science that might not have been done otherwise. And we support that here too. Not that our support is even necessary, but keeping you informed of what's going on the moon is vital. I know I hear a lot of people say, oh, why are we going to the moon when we have problems here? Listen, our problems here can be solved with the energy solutions that we discover on the moon. The moon is covered in an element, a compound really, called helium-3. Helium-3, harvested correctly and transported to Earth, can be used to power major cities totally pollution-free for decades. A shipping container of helium-3 could power New York for a long, long time, longer than a nuclear power plant, and totally pollution-free. So don't fool yourself, and don't be fooled. The technology to save this planet is going to come from exploring space. So it is an investment in energy. It is an investment in living within the energy set that we have here on this planet without shoveling it into our gas tank and burning it. Listen, we have about 1 minute left. I want to, let's put this back up here again, because I want you to make sure that you have a chance to check out Contact in the Desert. This is an important thing. It's the biggest event of the year. I want to see you there. I think it would be marvelous if you came there and told people that you heard about it on X Squared Radio. And also, don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends to subscribe and listen to these programs as they go on archive on YouTube, because once we reach 4,000 hours, we go into Super Chat, which means we can accept donations. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after these messages. Don't go away. YouTubers, just hang in there, and we'll be fine. Don't worry about it. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. By Christine, great for heart palpitations. By Anne, before I started using this product, every afternoon my ankles and my hands would be swollen. That doesn't happen anymore. So if that part of their advertising is true, I have to assume that the rest of it is also. Not to mention that when I had my yearly blood test, only a few weeks after beginning to use this product, my cholesterol had dropped over 30 points. I'm going to continue to take it. By Croc, I love this product. It really works. By Brad, works great, thank you. Tell us your story. Get your Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death. This is Uncle Walt from the Iron Works. Josh, Corey, and I have chosen to look at life with no fear. No fear of the unknown. No fear of questions about the supposedly well-known. No fear of ridicule for thinking outside the familiar fool's lines. No fear of the boot on the neck of those refusing the party line. No fear of taking on those so convinced of their beliefs they would sooner drink the Kool-Aid than believe they've been fools made. In this world filled with me too, cattle think, can truth's protective layers be peeled back to show the tender, juicy pink? Are we all just grist for the mill? Souls sold against our will, or is that just how it feels? When you're filled to the rim with triviality so fear-filled and grim, break clear of the fear right here. Tuesdays and Fridays at 2 a.m. on TFR. Josh and I and you will hammer out the impurities of technology-driven groupthink, fold in a dash of logic, and quench it all with a bit of absurdity. The Ironworks. Break clear of the fear.
You are now tuned into the truth frequency.
Your protection from deception. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Good to have you all here tonight on X Squared Radio with me. Thank you so much. Question in the chat room. Of course, Chat Rat came to see us in Las Vegas. It was a great thing to see listeners to X Squared Radio show up at the event in Vegas at the 5D events. He is, as you know, a very eloquent contributor to the TFR chat room. And he says, I get word that municipal prosecutors are arresting patriots and throwing them in jail under, and he lists the statute, rebellion or insurrection, and advocating throwing of government. Well, note the key words, U.S. citizens. I have a little bit different sources. I can tell you that my feelings are that 2020 is going to be the year of justice. Now, I hope, as you do, that they don't take, the entire year of 2019 amassing sealed indictments and posturing and making deals and all of that stuff. I hope that they start arresting the ones that they know. I would hope that they start with Brennan and Clapper and Rice and Jarrett, and let's just go ahead and get them arrested, and let's just call it Operation Gitmo. So I hope that they're not going after U.S. citizens, because we're not the ones seceding from the Union. We're the ones supporting the Union. We're the ones sustaining the Union, and we would really like to see those that are trying to tear the Union down to be summarily taken care of by justice. So I want to continue with my space motif here for the first hour. Everyone knows that the universe is expanding. What we really don't know is the rate of expansion. We have a guess, we have an idea based on what we think the Big Bang was. But me, and of course a lot of my theoretical physicists friends, are also of the school of thought that the Big Bang maybe never happened, that it's a matter of perspective, human observation, let's say, that we know that from the point of view of a photon, from the speed of light, the entire universe is local. distance becomes zero, time becomes zero, and so everything becomes present now, as you want to call it. And it's actually human observation that has slowed the universe down so that we can behold it. So the idea is that maybe in some respects, at least in some consideration, the Big Bang never happened. But the speed of the universe's expansion is also known as the Hubble constant, and it is a central part of physics and our understanding of the universe. But, as you already have figured out, it has repeatedly been observed to behave unexpectedly. The more we find out about it, the more we are wrong about it, in ways that have forced us to wonder whether our assumptions about it had been wrong. And I know what you say about assumptions, but that's only in human resources. I'm just telling you, we scientists make assumptions all the time. Now, sometimes those assumptions are wrong, but we have to have a place to start because we don't have any data. And so when we go to conduct experiments, you can't measure everything all at once because then you're measuring nothing. You want to assume that certain things are constant, or assume that the rate of expansion is at least known so that you can measure other things compared against it. And once you have this comparative view, then you can find out whether your assumption is correct or not. But you got to start somewhere. So assumptions are perfectly legitimate in science. Please tell your boyfriend or your girlfriend that is okay to assume from now on. So anyway, this new study confirms that speculation and requires further work to explain exactly how the universe is growing, which is a tough word. I have investors ask me all the time, so exactly how long is this going to take? And I always have to say, well, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know exactly. I can give you a range of minimum and maybe maximum, but exactly is kind of hard to do. Because the research saw Professor Rees and his team analyze light from 70 stars in a galaxy that's close to the Milky Way galaxy. And this galaxy is known as the Large Magellanic Cloud, using a new method that allowed them to capture the stars quickly. The stars they observed are called Cepheid variables. Yeah, there will be a test later. Not really. You don't have to remember that term. But the point is that they change brightness predictably, allowing them to be used to measure intergalactic distances. The new method allowed the researchers to measure many more of those stars far more quickly. Normally, Hubble can only be used to look at one star each time it takes one of its 90-minute orbits around the Earth. But the new method allowed it to see dozens in that same amount of time. Makes it much, much more productive. Using that data, the researchers were able to confirm our understanding of the cosmic distance ladder, which allows us to determine distances throughout the universe. Because distance, we don't measure in terms of length, per se. We measure them in terms of time. Or, let me put it another way, we measure time in terms of distance. We call it light years because that's the distance that light can travel at the speed of light in a year. So that gives you an idea how we're measuring space. So the more precise that understanding became, the clearer it was that the speed wasn't in line with what they expected. Scientists have made predictions of the Hubble constant based on data from the European Space Agency's Planck satellite, which can observe the conditions of the early universe just 380,000 years after it came into existence. The two numbers that we had there, they didn't match up. They were off from one another. They didn't agree. This is not just two experiments disagreeing, Rees explained. We are measuring something fundamentally different. One is a measurement of how fast the universe is expanding today as we see it. The other is a prediction based on the physics of the early universe and on measurements of how fast it ought to be expanding. If these values don't agree, you already know what this means, right? There becomes a very strong likelihood that we're not getting it right. We're missing something in the cosmological model that connects the two eras. Professor Reese and his team are not able to say why such a difference exists, but it is significant. They hope to work to refine it even more, allowing them to get rid of any further uncertainty about the Hubble constant. I think they'll probably add a few elements to the Hubble constant so that the units will line up. Is it, I don't know, the discovery of warp speed? Well, that's a great question. It's a question, and that's what science means. Science means question. There is no such thing as settled science in anything. Anybody that tells you that is like saying unsettled, settled. That's basically what they're trying to say. There's no such thing as settled science. Science is questioning, and that's what we're getting ready to do again and again. Yes, I know. In the chat room, they're also talking about superluminal speed from Tesla. There's superluminal speed from Agnew, too. Okay? Superluminal is the human consciousness. Luminal is just the limits of light. There are things much faster and much more powerful than light at measuring things. It is our consciousness that can behold the smallest quanta and the formation of solar systems. We're the ones, our observation, not individually, but as a totality of consciousnesses. That is to say, if you look at the consciousness of the universe as a bell curve, the normal distribution of all the strengths and weaknesses or weak consciousnesses in the universe, the total population of the consciousness of the universe is this bell curve. Now, you could be out in these tail sections, but because the population is so large, in the trillions, we know this from the Avengers movie, I'm going to review that here in just a little bit too, that the average is not going to change much, because in very large populations, you can have wild fluctuations in the population, but the average stays pretty solid. The average universe that we experience is the mathematical sum of all the consciousness, observing power in the universe. Now, what makes each individual consciousness? Well, we'll talk about that. Let me just go ahead and throw it in right here since I mentioned it. Each individual consciousness is its own conscious address in the universe. You are a complete individual, perfect unit yourself. You are not flawed. You are you. You are the you. Never forget that. How did you form? You formed from another consciousness that took the square root of itself. So think about it. Think about it. We're not talking about the sum of all the consciousness in the world, in the universe, being added up to equal one collective consciousness. That's not what's happening. When you take the square root of something, yes, you are dividing it up, but you're dividing it up by itself. And it's not added together, it's multiplied together. So if you take all the individual conscious addresses in the universe and you multiply it by its mate consciousness, all the way back to the original consciousness, you have the universe. You have source. So you are each individual is a piece of source. Now, here is the remarkable thing. When you expand everyone into this equation that makes up the universe, if you removed one of you from the universe, the entire equation would collapse. The entire universe would collapse and fold in on itself. Or if you wanted to think of it another way, the entire universe is folded up inside of you. That makes it pretty powerful. That makes our observation pretty powerful. And it also makes our contribution to that bell curve, to that average, very profound. Yes, it's true, very strong individuals that have a very, let's call it a big address in the address of individual consciousnesses in the universe, can make a significant contribution to that and thus maybe shift the average reality. But imagine, and you don't have to do much imagining, just think for a second. Imagine if you aligned thousands, millions, billions of those consciousnesses on one change in the average reality. You could shift the average reality. You could create a new future. I would say you could join and then you could change it. Oh, it works. It absolutely works. If you don't believe me, come see the Remembering the Future presentation at Contact in the Desert. But at least admit this. The dark side knows what I'm telling you is true. And they use it every single day. Every day, every minute of every day they use it. They bathe you. They soak you in their propaganda every single day. And if you turn it on and you watch it and it goes into your head and you react to it just the way they want you to react to it, you are helping them manifest their reality. They know these principles work and they're using them. That's why the 6 media moguls think as one and they focus on you. We're going to talk a little bit more about this later in the next segment, but that's why they're using you. They're using your conscious address and they're filling it full of junk mail, and they're making you think about what they want you to think about. And I'm asking you not to do that. I'm asking you to change what you think about. Yes, my feckless cat has come into the office. He's opened the office door because he knows how to do it, but he never closes the door behind him. So during the break, I'm going to have to get up and go close the office door, and then you know what's going to happen. My feckless cat is going to, his name is Steve. He's down here by the windowsill. He's going to say, oh, I want to leave the office now. And he can reach his paw underneath the door and he can pull it open again and he'll leave. But he still won't close the door behind himself. So, anybody want a big yellow cat? I mean, just no? Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the alien breeding program. I'm not rolling my eyes. I didn't roll my eyes. You YouTubers didn't see me do that. Okay. Dr. Yong-Hai Chi, a instructor in Korean at Oxford's Oriental Institute, part of the prestigious university, thinks this new species will save Earth from annihilation from climate change. Hey, you got to have something. Well, Dr. Chi believes alien-human hybrids may already exist. Yeah. Dr. Chi first said the hybrids may already exist in a lecture in 2012, but has now written a book on the subject. He believes there is a strong correlation between climate change and alien abductions. Why not? The Oxford student newspaper has reported this. His book, written in Korean, is called Alien Visitations and the End of Humanity. He says he has identified 4 types of aliens: small, tall, and bold, and scaly with snake eyes, and insect-like. Yeah, that sounds pretty reasonable. I've heard about those before. Dr. Chi believes the insect aliens may be in charge and give orders to the other types. I pretty much concur with that. The insectoids that I have heard about are intelligent and of different mindsets. Some are nice and some are not. Dr. Chi believes the insect aliens exist in their own biosystem and humans cannot experience because our perception is limited by our organs, probably our eyes. As the aliens are said to be highly intelligent, so Dr. Chi believes they could solve the problems on Earth in the future, such as climate change. Let me take a sip while I think about that for a second. Well, I think they have to work with the sun. He said they come not for the sake of us, but for the sake of them, their survival. But their survival is actually our survival as well, the survival of the entire biosphere. Dr. Chi said he was still looking for more evidence to support my view. I can see that. Hey, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt if he's looking for evidence. His initial lecture, Alien Abduction and the Environmental Crisis, outlined his theory. He cited an abduction researcher in the U.S. who argued that aliens' primary purpose is to colonize the planet by interbreeding with humans to produce a new hybrid species. I'm going to talk about that in just a little second. Hang on a second. There's a conversation going on in the other room. Just give me a second. Steve, I'm going to sell you cheap. Bet you don't see that every day. Host has to get up and close the door behind his cat. Wow. Can't believe that stuff. So he believes aliens appear on Earth when the planet is facing significant problems such as climate change or nuclear war. And he concluded if it may be more or less assumed that the hybrid project is a response to this impending demise of human civilization. You better take a look around, Dr. Chi, because there are more humans alive now on Earth than have ever died on this planet. Just so you know. Dr. Chi first expounded his ideas, of course, in this 2012 lecture. He says, here's my position on the alien breeding program. No. This is my position. This is my position on the alien breeding program. I've expressed it on various panels. If you have not been at these expos, these conferences, you wouldn't know that because you weren't sitting in the audience for the panel. You could be if you go to Contact in the Desert. We're going to have a panel on this very thing. I've met several very convincing women who claim they have met their children from the breeding program. Now, to be clear, none of these women claim to have actually carried a fetus beyond a few days at most. The zygote is removed somehow and taken to another facility or off-planet to complete its term. My unanswered question is this, and I've asked the question many times. I do not get a straight answer. Is about the spirit that takes that body. You see, the spirits that come through the well of souls, as described in Genesis, they kept their first estate. That is to say, when the war in heaven was fought, the spirits that followed God and Michael the archangel were awarded the honor of coming to earth in a physical body to continue their growth process. The ones who fought on the side of the light bringer, Satan, Lucifer, whatever you want to call him, were not allowed to progress the same way. When Lucifer made his way to Eden to seduce Eve, his design was to spoil the whole image of God thing by possessing the bodies that God had so perfectly designed for them. Well, God places a rule in place called enmity. Okay? This blocked Lucifer's followers from simply taking a human body at will. Well, Lucifer has been around for the birth of many worlds, and he knows how it goes. His baby was growing inside of Eve. And while they talked about eating dust and crawling on one's belly, other things were going on. When Cain was born, his true nature did not take long to show up. The first murder took place shortly after Eden was merged with Earth. Abel's death was easy to see for God. Still, he let Cain live, and he made a deal with him for his escape to the land of Nod, where he began to breed with the seed of lower Adam. The result was another race of hybrids who had enough of Lucifer's DNA to allow the souls who were banned from the well of souls to come to earth. In other words, wicked spirits who are evil to the core are born into mortal bodies not covered under the enmity clause. Always a loophole. That's how Lucifer works. Now, there are hundreds of millions of them on earth right now. They die every day, but they come right back in another body suitable for them. When the bodies are limited, then other arrangements must be made. Hence, the alien breeding program. Now, the only thing that would make alien breeding program continue unabated, or at least not eradicated by any means, is for humans to believe that these highly advanced souls are coming to Earth to save it from Adam's seed. So my question is this: what souls are sharing the bodies resulting from aliens breeding with humans? Do you know? Are they souls in the image of God who kept their first estate in the war in heaven? Are they followers of Christ? Can they be exalted the same way a soul in mortal human body can be? I recall the giants in Enoch's day. There were good ones. There were. They helped humans. They did work. They fought wars, and even helped to build impossible structures designed to reach closer to God. They pleaded with Enoch to be saved, and Enoch went for hundreds of years to God to ask him if they could be saved. Always the answer was the same: no. They died by the thousands or tried to run from the flood. They wanted to be eternal, like us, but they knew that would never happen. Only a remnant of their DNA exists today. If there are aliens out there, or hybrids for that matter, that have a voice with which to speak, let one of them come with me to contact in the desert to speak to the people. You want to save the world? Change the world? Then come with me and stand with me before the people and let the truth be told. I'm just saying. I say the same thing in every panel. You want to impress me? Come with me. Bring one. Let one of them step from behind the curtain, right behind me. Just let them step around and stand next to me. I don't care if they're 7 feet tall, 12 feet tall, 20 feet tall, or the same height as me. I don't care if they have scales or praying mantis arms. Let them speak. Nobody's going to hurt them. They'll be able to get on their ship and run away if they want to. But let's have the truth. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back at the top of the hour with more X Squared Radio. You YouTubers, hang in there. We'll be right back.
Censorship and regulation is becoming an ever-growing problem in today's modern media. From the mainstream to YouTube and Google, the information you're looking for is buried by official narratives and propaganda. This is why TFR is 100% uncensored, unregulated, and listener-supported. The shows on TFR are not micromanaged by the station, and our hosts are free to speak their minds however they please. As such, the views and opinions expressed on our station are of those who make them. If you happen to hear anything offensive on TFR, please send us an email to toughtitty@tfrlive.com, and we'll be happy to tell you that we really don't give a damn. We stand for freedom of speech and non-censorship. If you also stand for free speech, you can go to tfrlive.com/signup and sign up for a TFR supporter pass and help us in our mission to keep the airwaves uncensored and unregulated. TFR Live, your uncensored and unregulated protection from this.
Defiance in the face of death. Russia probe testimony. I'm Evan Haining. Saturday's Poway, California synagogue shooting killed one woman and wounded 3 people. Rabbi Yisrael Goldstein lost a finger to bullets when a shooter sprayed Congregation Shabbat with gunfire. Well, today Goldstein described the carnage as he tried to protect children in the banquet hall.
My granddaughter, 4.5 years old, sees her grandpa with a bleeding hand and she sees me screaming and shouting, "Get out, get out." She didn't deserve to see her grandfather like this.
60-year-old Lori Kay was killed in the attack. In addition to Goldstein, a 37-year-old man and an 8-year-old girl were wounded by shrapnel. All have been released from the hospital.
He is not going to dictate the format of the Judiciary Committee.
That's House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler responding to reports that Attorney General William Barr may not show up for his scheduled testimony this week if Democrats stick to the format Nadler has proposed for Barr's questioning.
What we're planning to do is that after the members finish questioning for 5 minutes, the Democratic counsel will have half an hour to question, and the Republican counsel will have half an hour to question. And that's a standard method of doing things.
Nadler said the witness, Barr, is not going to tell the committee how to conduct its business, period. All 5 men who'd been trapped in a Southwest Virginia cave have been rescued.
After several hours of this operation, they've been able to get the men out of that hole. Not sure of the conditions just yet. In fact, as we were reading through a news release just earlier, they said that the men had to be transported to the hospital. It would take some time before their names and conditions would be released.
That's correspondent Ryan Young. At the box office.
I know I said no more surprises, but I was really hoping to pull off one last one.
Well, Avengers Endgame has obliterated records with a $1.2 billion opening weekend. Some theaters even stayed open 72 hours to screen the 3-hour movie. I'm Evan Haining.
When you must unite what has been set asunder.
We are TFR, Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back to X Squared Radio, second hour. All right, the end begins. I told you at the beginning of the program that 2018 was the year of awakening, 2019 is the year of light, and 2020 will be the year of justice. Well, Attorney General William Barr has established an investigative team that he intends to use to look into the origins of an FBI counterintelligence investigation into Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Oh, yeah. Barr has settled on the Justice Department members that he plans to lean on to look into how the FBI decided to investigate Trump in the first place. Now, I've told you in past times about the origin of the FBI on this program. If you read the book Charm a Favor, which you'll be able to see flipping up there, right there it is, Charm a Favor. That is the #2 Amazon bestseller, or was the #2 Amazon bestseller. It sells books every single month. If you read that book, you would know the origin of the FBI. In 1935, Franklin Delano Roosevelt established the FBI from a group of investigators that had already been formed in 1918 called the Bureau of Investigation. They were formed from some pretty bad guys. As you know, at the time, they had a lot of organized crime, a lot of numbers running, a lot of bootleggers, a lot of assassinations going on, a lot of bank robberies going on. And they needed a special police force that could follow these people from state to state, because they would often cross state lines, robbing banks and moving money and running numbers and prostitution and card games and all kinds of underworld stuff. Well, when Roosevelt became president in 33 and 35, he decided to bring these guys in-house. And he made them into the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Their assignment was to protect the interests of the United States. I'm sorry, that's what the charter says. Doesn't say to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. No. To protect the interests of the United States, which at that time was the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party ruled everything. They ruled everything. So they were established in 1935 to be the opposition research firm for the Democrat Party. And they did their job very well. And they've been doing their job ever since 1935. The FBI didn't become corrupt. They were founded in corruption. Now, does that mean every single agent in the FBI is corrupt? No, it doesn't. Lots of people join for the right reasons. But the higher up you go, the more nefarious the oath and covenant becomes. So make no mistake, the upper echelon of the FBI is corrupt, and they work for the globalist syndicate. Now, William Barr knows which ones these people are, the people that went after Trump and by the way, they also went after Cruz. You don't know about that yet, except on this station. William Barr isn't revealing that yet, but they also had spies in Ted Cruz's campaign as well. Oh, they hated Ted Cruz way worse than they hated Donald Trump. Way worse, because he was already in the Senate. They tried to destroy him numerous times, but they were unable to do so. Yeah, though the spying program on the Cruz campaign is not public knowledge yet, except right here. We're the ones that broke that story for you. So the probe ultimately led to the investigation by Special Counsel Robert Mueller into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election, because that's the way the intelligence community wanted it to go, because they were being directed by the DNC and by the Clinton crime syndicate. Trump dissenters had hoped that Mueller would find evidence of collusion between Trump's campaign and Russian authorities, but Mueller's findings concluded there was no evidence of it. So, people want to know, who's going to replace Kirstjen Nielsen at Homeland Security? Yeah, well, you'll just have to wait a little bit longer. We have a name, but we'll see what happens. By the way, Barr was testifying in front of select House members early Tuesday about aspects of his summary of Mueller's report when he notified them of his plans to take a harder look at the FBI. Oh, they didn't like that. They didn't like that at all. He said he might review 8 criminal referrals that were submitted by Representative Devin Nunes. He's the Republican from California. You heard about those. We don't know who they are yet, but we're going to. Very soon we're going to. Nunes says they're at the heart of the Russia-Trump collusion investigation, which was a complete and utter coup attempt, a fraud. Conservatives, including Nunes and Representative Mark Meadows, have long been engaged in their own investigations into alleged misconduct and bias within the upper echelons of the Department of Justice and the FBI, including the anti-Trump text messages from former FBI officials Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. And let's not forget, a couple of weeks ago we had the very dynamic Diana West on our program to talk about her new book, The Red Thread. I have it in my bookcase behind me. Where we went over the roots of these people, not the least of which was, in the very first chapter, we were introduced to the infamous Nellie Ohr. And you can see who these people are. Brennan and Comey and Ohr and Strzok and the rest of them. You can see their Marxist writings, their papers, their theses, and even John Brennan voted for a communist for president. So you can see where these people come from. They are corrupt. They were founded in corruption. Barr's examination of the initial Russia investigation could intersect with an investigation by U.S. Attorney John Huber, who was appointed by former Attorney General Jeff Sessions in March of 2018 to look into GOP claims of FBI misconduct. And there really isn't anything the Democrats can say about this, because the man who used his can opener to open this can of sewage Mr. Horowitz is actually an Obama appointee. So there's nothing they can do about it. They cannot say that Trump appointed this guy because he didn't. So between Huber and Horowitz, you're going to see thousands and thousands of indictments be handed to William Barr, and William Barr is going to have to make the decision, do we arrest these people or not? Now, these indictments are sealed. And by the way, I had to go look up the definition of a sealed indictment. What the hell is a sealed indictment, and why would anybody seal one? Basically, it says an indictment is sealed until it is unsealed. Yeah, it really explains a lot, doesn't it? No, it doesn't. The point is that they seal an indictment which is handed out by, not by the investigator, it's handed out by a grand jury. Now, the grand jury isn't in D.C. If it was, they would have found these people a long time ago, and they would have threatened each one of them with their lives or their kids' lives, and they would have intimidated them to where they were not functional. No, the grand juries are way out in Utah, and the grand jurists are anonymous. They're protected. Oh, you've heard about this? No, you haven't. You know why? Because Huber's organization in Utah is leak-proof. Leak-proof. One leak about 3 months ago, it was a small one, came out about John Huber's operation, and guess what happened? Yeah, the Anons, which is a group of these super hackers that follow everything, and I don't even think they have jobs because they stay on top of this stuff, they issued a warning. They issued a warning to the leaker. Don't leak another thing. We know who you are. We know where you live. Don't leak another thing. And we have not heard another peep out of John Huber's organization. So the grand jury's integrity is intact. The jurists are safe, and the indictments have been piling up. In other words, there's enough evidence given to the grand jury, and the grand jury has issued an indictment, which means this person should go to trial. There's enough evidence that this should go to trial. Now, oftentimes, the person that is the subject of that indictment does not know. They don't know that they're being indicted. They don't know they have been indicted, especially if that indictment is sealed. The person doesn't know, so they don't know to run. They don't know to get their money out of the bank and get a plane ticket and disappear from the country. That's one reason why they might be sealed, because you don't want to alert the person that's going to be arrested for a felony or for even something to the level of treason that they're going to be arrested. You don't want to alert them so that they don't have a chance to run. That being said, once the arrests start, you know what's going to happen. You know exactly what's going to happen. The next guy in line is gonna whip out his passport and disappear. So here's what has to happen. All the arrests have to happen at the same time. So over the weekend, I decided to take a little time. I went into meditation, and I said, okay, we've been successful at this in the past. Let's do a little time travel. I want to do a little bit of time travel, and I want to look at the headlines, and I want to look at the history books of what they say, what the history books and the newspapers say about what is about to happen from the future looking back. I'm pretty good at this. And here's what they said. They called it the Night of the Long Knives. Yes, they did. They associated it with the time when Adolf Hitler, when he became chancellor, he had a lot of political opposition from politicians, from people that were already in office, or people that were running for office. And he broke a bunch of people out of prison, put brown shirts on them, and they went and killed these people in one night. They assassinated a bunch of them. And in history, we call that the Night of the Long Knives. The same exact thing happened in 2016. Oh, you don't remember it? Well, that's because you weren't listening to this station at that time. Because here on X Squared Radio, we revealed it. It wasn't the Night of the Long Knives in this country. It was the night of the long knives in Mexico. Over 100 candidates running for office in Mexico were assassinated in a single weekend. 100 of them. Yeah, they were knifed, hung, shot, beheaded, burned alive. They were killed. Over 100 candidates. These candidates were running for offices that would have helped clean up some of those communities from cartel gangs. That's what they campaigned on. And what happened? The ones who were in power, who worked for the cartels, both in this country and in that country, organized their assassination. We're not talking about assassination here. We're not talking about that kind of justice. What we're talking about is arrests. What we're talking about is picking up 200 or 300 of the most ruthless, vicious, bloodthirsty criminals that have ever occupied a government. Any government ever. Even Attila the Hun didn't have people like this in his organization. Pick these people up, put them in handcuffs, put them in orange jumpsuits, and get them down to Gitmo to go through tribunals. We know the tribunals are in play. We saw them in play when Kavanaugh was being interviewed. We saw the Supreme Court decision that they were talking about in the Kavanaugh interview. We know that Gitmo has been upgraded. We know it has been readied. We know it has been staffed. We know that Huber and his team have been completely successful in putting these indictments together, which means the crimes were committed, the crimes were reviewed, and the crimes were referred to law enforcement for arrest. That law enforcement is William Barr. And that's why I call 2020 the year of justice. But it's going to start much earlier than that. It has to start all at once. So I'll have more news on that. So just relax a little bit. Let's go back a little bit and talk about science stuff. There's a close pass coming from an asteroid purportedly the size of a 10-story building. It's going to pass by Earth at half the distance to the moon. Yeah, that's about 110,000 miles. That's like in our backyard. The asteroid 2019 GC6. Now, the number to pay attention to is not the 6. It's the 2019. Why? Because this is 2019. Right now is 2019. That means that this 10-story asteroid's never been seen before. This is its first appearance. And we have tracked it and we know where it's headed. It is going to pass within 136,000 miles of Earth, safely avoiding a devastating collision. Now, NASA warned the orbital trajectory of the asteroid means it may still pose a risk in the future because, as you know, asteroids orbit the sun, which means it will come around again. Estimations suggesting it could be anywhere from 7.5 meters to 30 meters in length. Shortly after it was discovered on the 9th of April, this is April, by astronomers at Catalina Sky Survey in Arizona, scientists at NASA JPL lab in California placed it on a list of asteroids that risk colliding with Earth in the next 100 years. It is difficult to accurately predict its exact path, but it is set to pass close to Earth again in 2034, 2041, and 2048. Hey, I plan on being here. It's not uncommon for rogue space debris to collide with Earth, with tons of cosmic material passing through the atmosphere every single day. It's just in tiny little pieces that burn up in the atmosphere. In the daytime, we don't even see it. In the nighttime, depending on the light pollution, you should be able to see a lot of these things. Sometimes, the size of a split pea, you could still see them coming into the atmosphere. In 2013, an asteroid about 20 meters in diameter entered the Earth's atmosphere over the city of Chelyabinsk in Russia. It, of course, split up into pieces, but it had caused an explosion. A subsequent study calculated it released more than 30 times the explosive energy of the Hiroshima bomb, contributing to more than 1,500 people in the local area seeking medical treatment from broken glass and flying debris. If humanity does not want to go the way of the dinosaurs, we need to study an event like this in detail. That's one of the professors at the University of California said at the time, and we have said on this program many times. Chelyabinsk serves as a unique calibration point for high-energy meteorite impact events for our future studies. But due to their relatively tiny size, asteroids are notoriously difficult to spot and often go undetected until a few days before they are due to pass or collide with Earth, which means you need to have a response team ready at a moment's notice, virtually a moment's notice. You don't get 3 months to plan for this. You get 3 weeks to plan for this. Astronomers at JPL recently described it as like spotting a lump of coal in the night sky because, we don't have radar that searches like that. We just don't have satellites up there that look out into space for NEOs, these near-Earth objects, which are intrinsically faint because they're mostly really small, they're far away from us, and they're usually not white. They're like iron rock, which is black. Add to this the fact that some of them are as dark as printer toner, and trying to spot them against the black of space is extremely difficult. Amy Mainzer, who's the principal investigator at NASA's asteroid hunting mission, she says, if we find an object only a few days from impact, it greatly limits our choices. So in our search efforts, we focused on finding NEOs when they are further away from Earth, providing a maximum amount of time and opening up a wider range of mitigation possibilities. Now, one of the things that hopefully we're getting luckier at is we spot these when they arrive, 2 or 3 days before they pass. In the past, we now know what to track. We can track their trajectory and we can make predictions about when they're going to come around again and whether that orbit is going to be shifted enough to intersect with Earth in its orbit around the sun. If that's the case, we may have as much as 20 years to get ready. Now, 20 years, we can mount an effective defense, even if it's pretty good size. We can strike it numerous times with nuclear weapons. We can fly up to it and attach rockets to it. We could take 5 years to attach a rocket to it. And then we could fire that rocket or fire an ion engine powered by the sun, and we could shove this thing into the sun instead of in a collision course with Earth. Far enough away, these things only have to be nudged a slight amount in order to miss Earth. Hopefully we don't make a dreadful error and push it directly into our path. All right, let's take a look at this. One of the campaign things that's being shot out there by the left in an effort to buy votes from vulnerable minorities in the country is the student loan vote buying scam. Yeah. Friday's PBS NewsHour, New York Times columnist David Brooks, no relation because my first name is Brooks, okay, said the 2020 presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, who's from the whacked out state of Massachusetts, she said the student debt forgiveness plan is a very terrible policy. He says it's a very terrible policy that is helping people who are going to be doctors and lawyers. This is insanity. In fact, I went to that article and I made a comment on it that I had a different plan. I'm going to share that with you in just a second. But this is what Brooks said. This particular one is a very terrible idea. College graduates are among the wealthiest people and the well-off people in our society. We should not be subsidizing college graduates. The top quarter earners hold 50% of the student debt. So if we start forgiving student debt, we're really helping people who are going to be doctors and lawyers. As usual, I, your highly qualified broadcast host, offer a better solution. I know this because I had the typical amount of $38,000 in student loan debt myself. I paid most of my way through college, 16 and a half years of college. But I ended up owing about $38,000, which is actually the average student loan debt. But I paid every dime of it back on time from my earnings. And I think everybody that gets a degree that has a good GPA is capable of doing that. If a student graduated, this is my plan, if a student graduated with a minimum GPA of 3.2, it should make it 3.25, but 3.2, he should have his federal loan forgiven. Now, yes, that probably means that most of the students will be doctors and lawyers. Why? Because doctors and lawyers go to grad school. Okay, they have to get a doctor's degree, either jurisprudence or MD. In order to be admitted to the school that issues those degrees, you have to have a certain GPA. Med schools don't take C students. Okay, law schools don't take C students. They take B or better. Preferably they like 4.0 or 3.8. And even if you have a 4.0, it's competitive. You got to have other things. Got to have played in sports. Got to have some extracurricular things in there. Got to have other things going for you. I couldn't do it because, well, I'm white. But you have to have other things going for you to get you into these schools. 4.0 doesn't get it anymore. So, you're probably right. But you still wouldn't be forgiving all student debt. The only debt you would be forgiving are people that graduated. And people that graduated with a 3.2 or higher. I estimate this to be about 5 to 10% of those that have student loan debt. Because over 50% of them never graduate. They just accumulate the debt, but they never graduate. Now, I have heard of people, places where I've worked, not the actual person, but the person's spouse, built up $200,000 in college loan debt for a degree in civil engineering. I think it was actually a master's degree in civil engineering. A civil engineer can make about, beginning out of college, maybe $55,000, $60,000 a year. In a couple of years, with the right moves, if they work for a city or a big firm, they can get up to about $75,000 or $80,000 a year. If they add the PE, the professional engineer stamp that goes with that state to their degree, $90,000 to maybe $120,000 a year. Still, you're looking at paying 10, 12 years on a student loan debt to get it paid off, even at that rate. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
Hey everyone, it's Chris Gio, founder of Truth Frequency Radio and host of Beyond the Veil. The mainstream media and establishment are running scared right now, and they've prominently featured TruthFrequencyRadio.com as number 89 on the federal government's hit list, also known as the fake news list, which is essentially a list of sites slated for censorship on Facebook, YouTube, Google, and other social media. Now is the time for you to get involved. Share your favorite TFR shows far and wide on forums and social media. Tell your friends and family about your favorite shows. If you're a business owner, get in touch with us to feature your product or service right here on TFR. And if you haven't done so already, become a TFR supporter now and get unlimited commercial-free downloads in high quality. Visit truthfrequencyradio.com/signup. Thank you for making TFR the leader in independent and uncensored talk radio. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
If you have hard water, the Lime Scale not only leaves white spots, it clogs pipes and breaks down appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars in energy and wear. Eliminate Lime Scale and other water issues like ground staining and bad odors with HydroCare water products, available from Wave Home Solutions. Wave's affordable water systems don't use salts or chemicals. You'll love the way your water tastes, smells, and looks. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
He was the deputy director of MI6, Britain's most senior diplomat. He was knighted by the Queen and in charge of thousands of highly trained spies. But he was also a member of the Paedophile Information Exchange. He had 45 diaries full of sex fantasies with children. His friend was the private secretary of Margaret Thatcher. He strangled a child and hit another with his car. He raped young boys and organized orgies with children for other politicians.
The Enigma Channel, intelligent television for planet Earth. EnigmaTV.com.
Real people, real radio.
Initiating the truth frequency.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
Hey, don't forget, Earth Explorers, to sign up for and register for the Contact in the Desert. Contact in the Desert is going to be amazing. It is the biggest expo of its kind in the world, and it's going to be in Indian Wells, May 30th or 31st through June 2nd. You should come out there because I'm going to be speaking there this year, and it's going to be great. Also, don't forget, if you're listening on YouTube, to subscribe, and don't forget to, of course, share this with your social media. We're already to May, just a couple more days, the month of my birthday, and we've not reached our 4,000 hours of viewing this year. We have to get to 4,000 hours within 12 months, or else we don't qualify for Super Chat. Now, one of the things you might notice if you're looking at YouTube is right up there at the top on the right-hand side, you can see the little social media connectors there. On the far right, you'll see a little teeny tiny PayPal. That's where you can make a donation to this station. And that helps us a lot because we add equipment, we make things better. As you can see, as of January, we started doing YouTube Live. That's all because of investment money that I have put into the program. If you help, it goes a lot faster. And if we get the Super Chat going, we can grow this in a way that it makes the burden very light upon a lot of people. So please take advantage of that. We were discussing the student loan program. And the reason that I brought this up is because it's being used by the Democrats as a vote buying program. And what I suggested is that we do, since it's the federal government loaning out all the money, it's not banks. What we should do is take those graduates that have got a 3.2 GPA or better and pay off their debt. What's that going to do is that's going to give them a jump start and allow them to stimulate the economy by keeping more of their money. That tax money, don't worry about it. They're going to pay it back many times over in payroll tax. It's only a small amount, maybe 5 or 10% of those who received federal loans, because over 50% of those people that received federal loans never graduated. So they're not going to get the income boost that a degree will give them anyway. So I don't see any way forward. If you pay them off, all you're going to do is create more of them. You don't want to incentivize people who are not finishing. I don't want to be cruel, but at the end of the day, there are only two kinds of students, right? There are starters and there are finishers. And society only rewards finishers. 2 semesters of something, that's going to make you smarter, but it's not going to get you where you need to be in terms of earning. That's why we make the investment. That's why we sit through class, we study hard, and we get good grades on the tests. If you don't believe me, ask any A student. Ask any of them if they have a hard time finding a job. They don't. They don't. Students with straight A's don't have a hard time finding a job. I was hired before I even graduated. The 84th largest corporation in the world came and found me because I graduated. When I took the test, I graduated in the top 0.1% of all graduating seniors. That's a very high number. Corporations hire the best because they deserve it. That's what they want to pay for, and that's what they get. So you study hard, you get good grades, I guarantee you, you're not going to be living on the streets. You get a PhD with a C average, I have no mercy for you, because that just tells me you had your mind on something else. Nobody's that stupid. You wouldn't believe the people I've met with PhDs. Dumb as a sack of hammers. Anybody can get a PhD. Just stay in class, study hard, and get good grades. You'll get the job. Then you have to prove yourself. So forget about buying votes. Invest in America by cleaning up the Marxist propaganda factories and getting smart graduates into the communities. Yeah, that's the other challenge, of course. If you pay this, it's going to spawn enormous corruption by the universities unless they are forced to revoke tenure for Marxist professors and administrators. And that is a much tougher challenge, I'm afraid. But it is a requirement for the loan forgiveness for graduates from that university. I'm just telling you, it's a good investment. If you have a city full of graduates from college, your city is eventually going to be a very nice place to live. All right. I can tell you right now, this night of the long knives is coming. The deep state hackers are sharpening their blades as we speak. Motherboard, that's a magazine, Motherboard recently reported that a Twitter employee working on machine learning has claimed that using algorithms and artificial intelligence to detect what they call white supremacy on the platform of Twitter would also target conservative politicians, writers, podcasters, and filmmakers. Yeah. Now I'm serious. Now I'm sharing real stuff with you right now. Motherboard recently published an article, and it was titled, "Why Won't Twitter Treat White Supremacy Like ISIS?" Because it would mean banning some conservative politicians too. Which claims that an employee at Twitter believes an algorithm designed to root out and ban white supremacists would also ban conservative politicians. I'm not making this up. No, I'm not. You chat room, just settle down for a second. Why do I say this? Because liberal sources are not sentient. They are mostly robots with fake accounts who serve only as outlets for a centralized message of hatred and bigotry. You and I already know this. You see it every day. The issue reportedly arose when one employee questioned why terrorist groups such as ISIS had not been effectively removed from the platform. And Motherboard writes this. At a Twitter all-hands meeting on March 22nd, which is last month, an employee asked a blunt question. Twitter has largely eradicated Islamic State propaganda off its platform. Lieutenants inside of Twitter wanted to know if they could use their skill set to also target American patriots who expose deep state shenanigans. Of course, they use the term white supremacist. There is actually no such thing among Americans. There are, however, a sea of black supremacists and those who placate blacks with false hopes of things like reparations. 5 seconds of consideration for such a thing will drive you insane with the algorithms surrounding that shameless vote-buying scam. An executive responded to the Twitter angels by explaining that Twitter follows the law. Nevertheless, a technical employee who works on machine learning and artificial intelligence issues went up to the mic to add some context. And boy, are you going to find this interesting. As Motherboard had previously reported, algorithms are the next great hope for platforms trying to moderate, aka censor, the posts of their hundreds of millions or billions of users. With every sort of content filter, there is a trade-off, he explained. When a platform aggressively enforces against ISIS content, for instance, it can also flag innocent accounts as well, such as Arabic language broadcasters. Society in general accepts the benefit of banning ISIS for inconveniencing some others, he said. Yes, he actually said the word banning. That employee also stated that for similar reasons, Twitter has not targeted white supremacists on the platform for fear of accidentally banning conservative politicians, bloggers, and podcasters. I'm sorry, I'm not seeing the connection here. That only means they have not figured out a way to do it without slaughtering their cash cow. Who would that be? Me. Me and people like me. People that write intelligent stuff. People that write things critical of the deep state. We're the cash cow. We're the ones buying the stuff. We're the ones paying for ads. Can you say eat more chicken? In separate discussions verified by Motherboard magazine, that technical employee said Twitter hasn't taken the same aggressive approach to white supremacist content because the collateral accounts that are impacted can, in some instances, be the same accounts who actually spend money and create jobs. The employee argued that on a technical level, content from conservative politicians could get swept up by algorithms aggressively removing white supremacist material. I don't know if you heard or listened to for very long before throwing up Joe Biden's opening statement to his campaign. What did he reference? He went right straight to Charlottesville. Who did he assault? The president. How did he assault him? He called him a white supremacist. He called him a Nazi sympathizer. Yeah. You think Joe Biden's comments would be censored? No. What they're talking about, yes, you already figured it out. The stunning thing here is the moral equivalence he asserts between white supremacists and conservatives. There is no doubt in anyone's minds that this position is a hitherto unspoken official policy of Twitter before this moment. And the company told Motherboard that this is not an accurate characterization of our enforcement on any level. But The Twitter employees' comments highlight the sometime overlooked tech platforms within the organization. Are modernization issues purely technical and algorithmic, or do societal norms play a greater role than some may acknowledge? I will let you know when they moderate President Trump's Twitter account. Oh, that's right. That already happened, didn't it? Well, Mr. Amarnath Amarasingam, an extremism researcher at the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, discussed why there may be issues with algorithmically removing white supremacist content on Twitter, telling Motherboard this, and I quote, "Most people can agree a beheading video or some kind of ISIS content should be proactively removed. But when we try to talk about the alt-right or white nationalism, we get into dangerous territory." Yeah, that's what he said. He actually believes that there is some secret organization called the alt-right. Hello, there's no such thing as alt-right, okay? That's called the left. There is the left, and there is America. Period. Okay? Yet he claims he is talking about, for instance, Iowa Representative Steve King, or maybe even some of Trump's tweets. So it becomes hard for social media companies to say all of this. Content should be removed, Amarasingam said. There's going to be controversy here that we didn't see with ISIS because there are more white nationalists than there are ISIS supporters, and white nationalists are closer to the levers of political power in the U.S. and Europe than ISIS ever was. Really? Like, where do you get this crap? You're a Marxist propagandist, Mr. Amarasingam. Your effort to find a way to use a robot to do your killing of America is the sickness within Twitter. It's also the sickness within Facebook and some of the other platforms. I have news for you. And listen very closely, Sophia, because I'm talking to you. New platforms are coming up fast that hunt and destroy shills like you, while allowing uncensored American speech the way it is supposed to be. One such platform is called We Go One, We Go All. It's WG1WGA.com. I'll leave the link in my notes. It is beautiful. It is inspirational. And I have yet to see a single propagandist post last more than a few seconds before the account holders themselves push it off the screen. That is how a republic works. Screw your algorithms. All right, let's talk a little bit about the globalist candidate. This is really powerful stuff. You could forget about the Manchurian Candidate. If you didn't see the film, don't worry about it. Basically, what we're talking about here is a candidate that's groomed. He looks good. He sounds good. He reads great off the teleprompter. He is charismatic. He builds huge crowds. Oh, yeah, that's right. We already had a candidate like that. But he's anti-American, and he wants to fundamentally transform America into something else. Well, forget about that Manchurian Candidate. We now have the first fully endorsed globalist party candidate. Former Vice President Joe Biden has already admitted to it in an enormous gaffe yesterday. Enormous. He decided to launch his 2020 presidential campaign in part because international heads of state called him to beg him to run for president and save the world. My gosh. Joe, you ignorant slut. Here's what it boils down to, Joe. You don't announce to Americans that the UN begged you to run for president, you're a dumbass, okay? The Democrat hopeful made the claim in a call to supporters after he launched his campaign this week, according to the Daily Mail. He says, I get calls from people all over the world. World leaders are calling me, and they're almost begging me to do this, to save the country, save the world, Biden said. President Donald Trump has been a thorn in the side of globalist politicians, placing entrenched corporate interests above the needs of their own citizens. On issues such as illegal immigration, NATO contributions, global warming, Chinese aggression, Trump has bucked international leaders rather than go along to get along. In particular, Germany's open borders Prime Minister Angela Merkel has been repeatedly humiliated in confrontations with Trump. Biden has tried to frame himself as a populist candidate, bashing Wall Street and pledging to reject campaign cash from federal lobbyists to counteract the Obama administration's infamously cozy relationship with big banks. However, his admission that globalists like George Soros see him as their best hope to oust Trump has the potential to really hurt his case with Americans. Further, the failure to disclose which nations want him to run brings up further questions about Biden's family relationship to, let's pick one. How about the Chinese government? As first exposed in Breitbart, Peter Schweitzer's book, Secret Empires. If you haven't read the book, you should read it. Schweitzer suggests that the communist regime was buying off Biden through his son with a shady 10-figure deal. Yeah, it was in the $1.5 billion. Let's pick another nation. How about the Ukraine? Yeah, we're already hearing about that in the news. Oh, you haven't heard? Well, you see, in December of 2013, right in the middle of the Obama administration, Hunter Biden flies on Air Force Two to Beijing with good old dad. His father, Joe Biden, who's now running for president, meets with Chinese officials. He's very soft on Beijing. The most important thing that happens 10 days after they return. And this is kind of crazy. And that's when Hunter Biden's small little private equity firm called Rosemont Seneca Partners, little tiny thing, not much equity, not much venture capital in there. They get a $1 billion private equity deal with, guess who? The Chinese government. Not with Chinese corporation, but with the government. And what people need to realize is that Hunter Biden, he doesn't have a background in China. He doesn't speak Chinese. He has no business in China. He has no background in private equity deals whatsoever. It is purely the influence that creepy, sleepy Joe Biden could offer with his political office that got his son the deal. The only way to keep Hunter from being prosecuted along with his corrupt father is for Biden to run for president. This is a play right out of the Clinton Manual for Self-Enrichment. Biden kicked off his campaign Thursday morning with video where he repeated the hoax narrative that Trump called neo-Nazis very fine people in the aftermath of the 2017 riots in Charlottesville, Virginia. By the way, he incorrectly said that one young woman was killed. She wasn't. She died of a heart attack on the way to the hospital. She wasn't killed. She actually jumped onto a car that crashed into the crowd because it was being smashed to pieces with baseball bats. This kid's lifetime dream car, Dodge Challenger, gorgeous car, was beat to crap with bats and sticks. She jumped up on the hood of the car and was staring at him right through the windshield when he backed up. When he backed up, her 230-pound frame flopped onto the street. Minor injuries, totally minor injuries. They put her on a gurney, put an oxygen mask on her, wheeled her into the ambulance, and on the way to the hospital, this perfect physical specimen dies of a heart attack. And what happens? The kid gets accused of murder. Let me tell you, Earth Explorers, I could take this case and I could win it for that kid. I believe his name was Jeffrey. So, they don't care. Oh, I gotta say, it is my assertion that Biden begged Obama to endorse him, but the calls were not returned. The globalists want only to dilute the election long enough for them to pull off another 9/11 style attack and blame it on Trump. They are assembling a new cabinet with their own multi-billion-dollar budget to move in and supplant the Trump administration. Oh yes, it is happening. They aren't going to cut off the head. They're going to blow the guts out of America. And they're going to shut off the president's voice to America. They don't care if every American lying in a hospital dies right now. They don't care if it takes 2 years for the lights to come back on. They would happily destroy everything to hold on to their power. And that's my feeling about it. Yeah? I know you agree with me. I think every smart person agrees with me. We got a couple minutes left in this section. I want to start this. The cash that would be king. This is a kind of a complex segment, but I know you can stick with it, and that's why you listen to this program, because we make the complex understandable. Ever since March 20th, the effective Fed funds rate has been trading above the IOER. I'll just explain it to you just for a second. This is the buying window. This was unexpected for the simple reason that it is not supposed to happen. It's not supposed to happen. Fed funds, the rate always trades below the IOER. As a reminder, ever since the financial crisis, in order to push the effective funds rate above zero at a time of trillions in excess reserves, the Fed was compelled to create a corridor system for the Fed funds rate, which was bound on the bottom and the top by two specific rates, controlled by the Federal Reserve. The corridor floor was the overnight reverse repurchase rate. Okay, that's the window, which usually coincides with the lower bound of the Fed funds rate, while on the top, the effective funds rate is bound by the rate the Fed pays on excess reserves. That's the IOER. That's the corridor ceiling. Or at least that's the theory. In practice, the effective Fed fund tends to occasionally diverge from this corridor, and when it does, it prompts fears that the Fed is losing control over the most important instrument available to it, and that is the price of money, which is set via the Fed funds rate. Now, I'm going to make this clear right after the break. We'll take a quick break. We'll come right back. It's important that you understand this.
Truth Frequency Radio is your #1 source for news and information without the hate, hype, and fear. We're proud to feature cutting-edge programs like Beyond the Veil with Chris and Cherie Geo, X Squared with Brooks Agnew, Paranormal Portal with Brent Thomas, Jaronism Raw with Jaron and Missa, Fearless with Frank Castle, Strange World with Mark Sargent, The Eye of Ra with Ra Castaldo, The Infinite Fringe with Billy Ray, Ironworks with Josh Corey, The Kent Baker Show, and dozens more. Did you know you can listen from any telephone by dialing 641-793-7117? Or call into your favorite show, toll free at 833-TFR-LIVE. Uncensored talk and news you won't hear on the mainstream media. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
Synagogue survivors, a Republican warning about Russia. I'm Evan Hanning. Despite a finger lost to gunfire and painful, heavily bandaged hands, Rabbi Yisrael Goldstein today described the attack at Congregation Shabbat, his Poway, California synagogue, where a gunman killed one woman and wounded him, a 37-year-old man, and an 8-year-old girl.
Here is a young man standing with a rifle, pointing right at me.
Goldstein, who stood up to the gunman and shouted warnings to his congregation, urged fellow Jews to show courage and strength at the coming Sabbath.
This Friday night, this Saturday, go to your synagogue. We need to fill up those rooms. We need to show them that terrorism, evil, will never prevail.
In Maryland this afternoon, a gunman fired indiscriminately into a crowd gathered for cookouts on a Baltimore street, wounding 7 people, including one fatally. Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report was about Russian interference in the 2016 election. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham told CBS's Face the Nation that Moscow's interference was a big deal, not just a few Facebook ads.
They were very successful in pitting one American against the other during the 2016 campaign by manipulating social media, and they actually got into the campaign email system of the Democratic Party. An attack on one party should be an attack on all. The Russians are up to it again, and here's what I tell President Trump. Everything we've done with the Russians is not working.
Graham says the U.S. needs to impose more sanctions on Russia, not fewer sanctions. In Spain, the governing center-left socialists have won Sunday's election, but must seek backing from smaller parties to maintain power, while the far-right party rode an unexpected surge of support to enter the lower house of parliament for the first time in 4 decades. The far-right Vox party captured 10% of the vote. I'm Evan.
Wherever you are, make it
Truth Frequency Radio.
All right, I want to talk to you a little bit more about what's going on with the Fed, because it's important. This is why the Fed chairman's being changed out. It's why men like Herman Cain put their name in to be considered as board members of the Fed. Now, Herman Cain has since removed himself from the mix because the left was going after him with an army of propaganda, and they were threatening to destroy his life again. So President Trump has the opportunity to put some people in place in the Fed that can fix this, but here's the risk, and this is why it's important that you understand this as best I can. The brewing speculation in the money market is the Fed could actually cut this IOER rate in an effort to bring down the Fed fund rate as well. Now, this would simply be a perfectly technical adjustment in the mind of Fed officials, but in reality, it's signaling something else. And they did it to themselves. They did it to themselves because Trump was growing the economy. They raised rates 4 times to try to stifle the economy as an overall coup attempt to break the Trump administration. Well, What they did is they created a situation where the value of money is breaking out of that corridor. It's not so bad for you and me, but it's very bad for the banks and certain kinds of banks. I'm going to explain that to you now. This is different than quantitative easing, okay? But it has the same effect if they move this rate. It pumps billions a month into the market with the express purpose of keeping the dollar from collapsing. The trouble is that these funds come at the expense of the lender, not the government printing money. Okay, that's what we did before. If they decide to do this as a one-off adjustment, I believe they will do it when and how it will do the most damage to the Trump administration. I know that sounds kind of weird, doesn't it? You'd think that they'd want to save the economy. They'd want to keep it going. They want to make the growth, something sustainable. But that's not what they want to do. And this is precisely why the Fed nominees that Trump is trying to get onto the Fed board are being blocked so heavily. We are talking about weaponized money to push the coup over the finish line. They haven't given up. There are multiple fronts to this war. This is precisely why President Trump must get a friendly member onto the Fed board. Now, despite some $1.4 trillion in excess reserves sloshing around, the liquidity conditions in the U.S. banking system are perhaps close to decade lows. Why is this important? It's a little like, you go to the mall and the only thing you have are maxed out credit cards and you have no cash in your pocket. Are you in arrears on anything? No, but you can't buy anything. You can't get what you need because you don't have any liquidity. You have no ability to buy. So, I know this is a lot to keep clear in your head, but just keep up with me just here for a second. I'll try to make this as clear as I possibly can. You see, Morgan Stanley suggested last week the Fed may have no choice but to cut by another 5 basis points on the next Fed meeting just to normalize the Fed funds rate and restore some temporary control to the most important interest rate in the world. In other words, the 4 rate hikes in the last year used to slow the Trump economy have put the Fed in a vice. President Trump's economy did not slow. It grew 3.2%. It's kicking ass. The bank did not make as much money as they had hoped off deficit spending because we were making money. Their only choice now is to lower rates so the liquidity of cash will flow again. And they don't want to do it because they know what the growth rate will do. It'll go to 4%, 4.5%. That's what, but see, the interest rate is normally used to stop inflation. This is not inflation. Inflation's virtually non-existent. Prices are not going up. Productivity's going up. Cars haven't changed prices in 10 years. I mean, some things like, dehydrated mushrooms have gone up, but everything else has pretty much stayed the same except for gas. The liquidity affects the Fed's balance sheet, and it resurfaced last week following a spike in overnight interbank rates. This is the rate at which banks trade money or buy money off one another to do things like buy mortgage-backed securities. And that keeps banks away from the window while they wait for a better rate. They don't want to go to the window. The window is kind of like a payday lender. You know what a payday lender is? Like you got a paycheck coming on Friday, but you need the money on Wednesday. So you go sell your paycheck that you're going to get on Friday and you pay 5% or 8%. I don't even know what they charge, but it's, if you calculate it by the month, it's about 60% interest they're making on their money. It's insanity. It's like, you want to send $200 to your kid in college. So you go to Walmart because he's close to a Walmart in the city he's in. So you pay $8 to put that $200 into Walmart, you get a number, you text the number to your kid puts the number, gets the number, he goes to Walmart and he gets the cash, the $200. But it costs you $208. That's 4%. You don't think, well, $8, it's no big deal. But if you do it $200 a month, that's 4% per month. 4% per month. It's a lot. It adds up. It adds up in a hurry, and that's why they do it. That's the window. That's the window. And banks have to do it too, but they don't want to. Now, before we get into these implications, first the mechanics and why the most important plumbing in the U.S. financial system appears to be clogged. In other words, they're constipated. Money's not flowing the way it's supposed to flow. I'm trying to get you to understand that this spike in interbank rates in April was accompanied by a drop in the reserve balances held by the banks at the Federal Reserve. It's the tax day excuse, but they get that every year. This is unique. Okay? April tax collections boosted the general account of the U.S. Treasury at the Fed by about $124 billion in the week ending April 17th and by another $30 billion in the week ending April 24th, which brings down the reserve balances back to their, downtrend since quantitative tightening. This is another activity other than quantitative easing, which we have not been doing. That's what we did during the Obama administration. Okay? Their biggest borrower is us, the American government. We're the biggest borrower. Okay? But we're charting another course now because we have revenue coming in from all kinds of stuff. Tariffs, taxes, productivity. More people are working now than have ever worked before. And the payroll tax is coming in. It is charting a course for debt reduction. Debt reduction, which it's going to spell certain doom for the Fed. Because if the United States begins to pay itself out of debt, the Fed isn't necessary anymore. We don't need to borrow money anymore. More ominously, assuming no more temporary swings in the Treasury general account, more declines in reserve balances lie likely ahead in the Fed's quantitative tightening that's going to continue until September. Now, do the banks care? No, not really so much. What they care more about is the rise in interbank rates relative to the IOER. That's the upper ceiling that accompanied this shift in American growth of the Trump administration. It is sort of like when you pay off your credit cards, okay, the lender hates you for it, and they penalize you by reducing your slave score. The Fed has lost control of rates, a rise which incidentally was not only confirmed to the Fed fund rate, which represents a modest component of interbank markets with a year-to-date volume of about pretty close to $70 billion a day. That's a lot of money. Other interbank rates, such as the SOFR, that's a broad measure of the cost of borrowing cash overnight, collateralized by Treasury securities, that includes all trades in the broad general collateral rate, plus bilateral Treasury repos, also increased. I know what you're asking. What the hell does this have to do with liquidity in the banking sector? Well, the answer is that the ongoing creep higher in the difference between the IOER and the effective funds Fed rate is a direct function of excess reserves in the system. Should we really be worried if the Fed is not making money the way they want to off the American government spending? Isn't it a good thing if American government gets out of debt? Not for the Fed, it isn't. And in the foreseeable future, the banks want you to believe they rely on the Fed making money available to them at cheap rates. The tightening in the reserves space shows up clearly And I'm going to leave this chart in my notes. And you can always get the notes by going to tfrlive.com/X2 Radio. You go there and you can get my notes, the things that I use to put this program together, and you can see it. But you can see the trend. You can see the trend. And this is what we're looking for, because it shows that the Trump economy is working. The liquidity conditions in the banking system are perhaps close to their tightest in 10 years. It means, yeah, there's a lot of equity out there. There's a lot of solid loans made out there, but there's no liquidity, no cash. So what is the relationship between the amount of reserves in the system and the Fed funds rate? Well, in theory, when the level of reserves in the system is more than generous, like above $2 trillion or so, it's right now about $1.4 trillion, which is a little skinny. There really isn't a direct relationship. But as it gets closer to the 1.5, 1.4 area, the regulations loosen up. And that's not a good thing when it comes to the banks. Okay? They are greedy and they're risk takers. And they deceive the appraisal and rating services to make themselves look healthier than they really are. You remember the movie The Big Short? This is exactly what happened, okay? They turned mortgage-backed securities into dog crap, but they were trading them as though, they were AAA, which they weren't. People weren't making their payments, and it caused a crash of the world. And this was a time when there was virtually no excess reserves in the system, as banks largely resorted to the discount window for emergency liquidity. You don't want to do that. That's the payday lender, okay? Very high rates. It's embarrassing. You want to go to the window in a black trench coat with the collar turned up. You don't want your neighbors to see you at the overnight window. Add to that the fact that the banks were making ridiculous loans to people who had no business borrowing money, and we had a disaster develop in less than 10 years. It wrecked the world. It ruined your 401k, wiped you out. And who ended up paying for that one, by the way? You did. You paid for it. Well, we're not in that same place. Not this time. This is different. This time, most of the payments are being made by homeowners. People are working. Now, there's still about 1.3 million foreclosures out there, but there's no more bailouts, okay? No investors are moving in to buy up these homes. Well, yes, there are investors that are moving in to buy these homes, and they're converting them into good loans, okay? They're not buying them and liquidating them. They're buying them at discounts for sure. The bank is going to take a hit anyway because it's going to go to auction. But the good news is that these investors move in, buy the home before it goes to auction, saving the homeowner a devastating hit on his credit. Then they put money into the home, paint, carpet, landscaping, whatever, and they turn the home back into a good asset, and the bank makes another loan, which is a good loan to a good qualified federally underwritten buyer. It is happening. And real estate investors like me are doing exactly what we're supposed to do. We are correcting the market the right way through supply and demand. We're doing it, not them. But one of the alarming bank-run catalysts to emerge was that usage of the discount window is becoming an effective death sentence of a bank. It is. Because most of the banks are pretty healthy. But the banks that have to go to that discount window, they're sick. Going to the window a couple of times a year, that doesn't hurt anybody. Everybody does that. But going there every Friday is a very bad sign for that bank. Okay? By the way, that crackle was lightning outside, and that boom is real thunder. So we're in the middle of a thunderstorm, and we could blank out at any moment. But we'll keep going. Going there every Friday is a bad sign. You don't want to do that. That's a sign you're on life support. If the market sniffed out that a given financial institution was scrambling for liquidity, guess what would happen? The stock of that bank, the naked short traders, would slam the bank's securities, while the counterparties would either significantly tighten overnight funding terms or they would withdraw them altogether. In other words, they would choke them to death. They'd be gone in a matter of hours, days at most. Now, I hate to tell you what that smells like, but it is a spiral of liquidity that eventually leads to insolvency of that bank. We don't want to see that. I mean, it's not going to happen to someone like Morgan Stanley or Wells Fargo or Fifth Third Bank, but there are hundreds of smaller banks, hundreds of them, that could spiral out of control, and a lot of them are in-house mortgages. In-house mortgages are going to be sold off at a fire sale if that happens. One can argue that it was the sudden collapse in peer liquidity, that's bank-to-bank liquidity, provisioning that brought down both Bear and Lehman in a matter of days. And it could happen again. I mean, believe me, the pathway is well known. So if you're dealing in a credit union, you're dealing in a small bank, 10, 12, 15 branches, it's nice to have, especially if you're a real estate investor, because a lot of these, make it a little easier to buy income-producing property. You landlords know exactly what I'm talking about. You don't want to be a landlord and have your paper being sold all the time. It's difficult to keep up with. It's hard to sell off a piece of property or recapitalize it in some way to buy another piece of property. Smaller banks are easier to do this with. But if they're going to the overnight window, you need to know about it. So, to be sure, the Fed learned its lesson. And perhaps the main reason that the U.S. Central Bank flooded the entire banking system with trillions in excess reserves was to ensure that not one bank would emerge as the weakest link in the financial system. If you go back and look at what happened in 2008, the overnight window was being pounded every minute of every day. Banks were going to that window to make up for their lack of liquidity. It was a death sentence. And fortunately, the federal government stepped in and tried to right things, but the Fed moved in and tried to right things. But in doing so, they asserted their power, and this is not a good thing. If it happens, it's deja vu from the Obama financial crisis. And believe it or not, there are many inside the deep state who are building this as the financial neutron bomb for the express purpose of destroying the Trump administration, even if it means you lose your home and your 401k. Elizabeth Warren is one of the most vocal lieutenants in this army. So I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding one bit here. I've given you some solid evidence here. And I'm sure there are bank CEOs who know, if they're listening tonight, they know I'm speaking the truth. They're also afraid of these players. In order to avoid further tightening, the Fed might be forced to cut interest rates by lowering the IOER. That would help the Trump recovery. And it's exactly why I think it will be resisted by the Fed. Of course, the Fed could inject liquidity via open markets operations, but that would be the equivalent of quantitative easing, and I don't think Trump wants to go there. In short, there's still some $1.4 trillion in excess reserves sloshing around in the financial system, but there's also, and they're not even talking about this in the news, there's also another $4 trillion in cash sitting offshore that needs to be repatriated. It could happen. It could happen in a month. If President Trump gives those companies with that cash a tax break to do this, they'll do it. They'll get it back in this country because it's this market where that cash can go to work. That money could enter the venture market, and it could jumpstart tens of thousands of new companies that are now waiting for funding. I'll keep a very close eye on the total borrowings under the Fed discount window. Once it spikes from its 8 or 9 year sleepy time slumber, all bets are off, okay? But my suggestion is you stay out of debt and be prepared for a 2 to 3 month dry spell. And, you know, if you're trading in real estate, that's a little bit different because there are people out there that want to buy homes. And the only way they're going to get the homes is if you and me, the investors, move in, buy these homes, and put them back into the market as a good asset. We have about 4 minutes left in this segment. Might be enough to do my Avengers review. No spoilers here, okay? But I just observed things no one else does with the movies. The one thing most people missed, unless they listen to this program, is that the Infinity War movie, The Mighty Thanos, commissions the building of a power glove that will hold the 6 Infinity Stones. And there's something you need to see here. The glove fits the left hand. It is with this left hand that Thanos kills half the life in the universe so that the remaining half will worship him and him alone. All but 6 Avengers are killed, okay? The movie franchise spent more than 10 years building to this point, absorbing thousands of comics written over 3 decades under the master storyteller Stan Lee. Hundreds of characters emerged, reigned with terror or vengeance, and died. But a few became the Avengers. In Iron Man's words, we avenge. Why aren't there pre-vengers? Because that's not the due process of the American way. And so, superhero movie Avengers Endgame smashed the box office records today with a $1.2 billion opening. I mean, nothing's even been close. In the $300 million, yes, but not in the $1.2 billion. But, you know, there were 45 showings of this yesterday at my local theater. 45. That's how you get these kinds of numbers. Endgame is a great movie. You're going to want to watch it twice. But the key to recovering the lost trillions who die in the previous record-setting franchise film is the use of the right hand. The left is destroying freedom and liberty in the world, and the right hand restores it. That's it. No spoiler. Just watch it, but trust me. The creators of this movie made use of that symbolism, even though nobody else except me writes about this one. You should see my Twitter account where the talented Lucky One helped me blend the face of Thanos with the face of George Soros. Now you see the true agenda of the left. So hang on, Earth Explorers. You're in for a white-knuckle ride. When we come back from the break, gosh, we're almost done with the program. I can't believe this. You YouTubers, keep chatting away. I'm so glad to see you in there. I'll do my best to respond to it during the break. I am trying to keep up with it. I'm reading the chat rooms on YouTube and the chat rooms at tfrlive.com. Both of them are free. Both of them I am reading. Both of them will, the YouTube one will leave a record for people to see how you reacted to tonight's program. We're going to talk a little bit about border stuff when we come back. It's going to be interesting because there's been a hole that has been exposed because of Trump's wall construction and proposed construction that is already underway. And that's creating a vulnerability. We're going to cover that when we get back right after this break. Don't go away. You YouTubers will be right back after this break. Hold on.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. September 2018. Extendivite works in keeping my blood pressure in the normal range. I've been using Extendivite for many years now. May 2018. Great product. I use regularly and I rarely get sick. March 2018. This product has relieved what appeared to be angina pain in my chest and shortness of breath after climbing stairs. I'm quite happy about it. February 2018. My husband, son, and I have been using this product for a few months now, and we have noticed an improvement in our joints and blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies in a capsule.
It's a great product. And the one thing I like about it the most is that when you open the bottles, you can smell like the scent of the fruits and veggies. It's no genius thing to it. It's really just fruits and veggies, which everyone needs. And you guys kind of put it in a way where you can take it easy and you can get it, and it's natural, and that's what I like about it. You know, I like the product, and I've taken it, and it's definitely made me feel a lot better. You know, I am a healthy person to begin with, but it's definitely good prevention, and it's definitely gives me energy, and I feel like it's a natural thing. I like it. I really do.
For a limited time, use discount code TALK to receive a 50% discount on your first preferred whole health system and have it shipped to you free. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go online to balanceofnature.com. Again, use discount code TALK.
Hey everyone, it's Mark Sargent from Strange World, broadcasting live every Tuesday evening, 10 to 12 Eastern, 7 to 9 Pacific, right here on True Frequency Radio. Strange World covers a wide range of topics, from enclosed world theory to lunar waves to the end of the world in film. It's basically doomsday with a silver lining. With the audience as my co-host, we take an optimistic approach to all things conspiracy and promote confidence, hope, and humor whenever possible. If there's a topic you want us to cover or a guest you would like to see interviewed, please email me at msargent23@comcast.net. So please join me and tell your friends about Truth Frequency Radio, the leader in real radio programming, bringing you quality, cutting-edge broadcasts from around the world.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
No hate, no hype, no fear. Real people, real radio.
I've been waiting for this moment since my first breath in. Never would have thought I'd be afraid to begin, but here I am, the edge of the water, wondering if I can swim. Never seem to notice all the days pass through, but in this final moment I'm still chasing the truth. I want an explanation why I can't stay here forever in my youth. And if I press on, will you wait? Will you wait for me forever? Or would it be wrong to ask you to come with? Tell me, will you wait?
I wish I could stay here with you forever tonight, because it's been a great program and I've enjoyed your company. Hope that you have enjoyed mine. Pay close attention, because at the bottom of this ad that you see here with Contact in the Desert is the way to get to my lecture on the Hollow Earth theory. And also, if you go there, /Brooks Agnew, contactinthedesert.com/Brooks Agnew, you can book yourself for the Remembering the Future workshop. You don't want to miss this. This has been voted the #1 presentation at dozens of conferences. This is a presentation that'll change your life. It'll open your eyes to a lot of things going on around you, going on in you, and going on for you in the universe. And I think you'll really enjoy it. And I would truly enjoy having you there with me in Indian Wells, California on May 30th. All right. You know that we have a border crisis. Without a wall to stop them, millions of foreign citizens are flooding into the fastest growing country in the world, America. The shortest pathway to a ranch of your own is by gaming the U.S. asylum system the Democrats have set up for them. Border Patrol officials have begun releasing migrant families in Tucson because they're coming over the border very close to there. There's a big gap in the fence. The wall comes along just fine, and then it stops, and there's a gap of several miles. They know this. They communicate this, and the cartels are moving these groups there, and they are arresting them by the hundreds every hour. Get that? The hundreds of people every hour are being detained, but the laws are screwed up. They can take these people into custody, but there's no place to put them. All the facilities are full, and the Democrats know this. And it's today we discovered not just George Soros that's pouring money into this marketing campaign. It's also the Pope. Yeah, the Catholic Pope is pouring money into getting foreign citizens from their home countries to the American border so that they can take advantage of this invasion force. The practice has been going on for about a month, according to the Border Patrol's Tucson sector, which covers most of Arizona's border with Mexico. It was a central topic of a meeting Border Patrol officials in Tucson held a couple of days ago with local law enforcement, elected, and community leaders. The number of migrant families released in Tucson has vastly surpassed the ability of local nonprofits to house them, which means these people have nowhere to go. Many of them do not have money. Many of them do not speak the language. Many of them have little or no skills. This past week, the city of Tucson and Pima County opened temporary overflow shelters to house migrants, although those shelters are once again empty, at least for now. You got to understand these overflow shelters, many of them are not air conditioned. They don't have proper facilities for this many people. I mean, you can set up a soup line, but these people haven't had a change of clothes in 2 months. They have blisters on their feet. They're wearing the same socks for 2 months. They have no money. What has been engineered here is one of the greatest humanitarian crises the United States has ever faced. And it is completely engineered by the left and by the globalists. We outlined this a year and a half ago, right here on this program. We began describing exactly what the globalists were trying to do. That they would be sending caravans of human suffering, and they would be ramrodding it with military-style cartels, ramrodding it through these tiny openings in the border, pushing them into the United States as victims. They would be raped, they would be taken advantage of, they would be robbed, they would be beaten, they would be discriminated against, spat upon, demoralized, and by the time they get here, we don't even have the ability to send them back home with $100 in their pocket, because the laws that the Democrats passed over the last 10 years are still in place, and we have been unable to move them out of the way. Now you say, oh, well, we had the House, we had the Senate. No, we didn't. No, we didn't. Oh, we controlled the committees, but we couldn't get any laws passed because the Democrats controlled the Senate. No, they didn't have a majority. I know that. But we had Republican in name only that voted with the Democrats. And every time we had a chance to do something about it, it wouldn't get to 60 votes. I know, you think, oh, 51 votes. No, 60. 60! And you want to know how many times the Republicans have had 60 votes in the Senate since this country was founded? 0. Not ever. Why do you think Harry Reid passed that rule? Why do you think he put it in place? that it would require 60 votes to get legislation passed in the Senate, because they know the Republicans have never had 60 votes, ever. Democrats control the Senate. They don't control the committees. They can't get anything passed, but they can block everything. And that's why these laws are still in place. They were put in place when the Democrats were running everything. And the Republicans that we did have in office were paid off. They were paid off by drug cartels. They were paid off by human trafficking cartels. And it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, in the hundreds of billions of dollars. They're addicted to cash, just like the people in this country are addicted to the drugs that are pouring through that hole in the border. Now, the goal of Friday's meeting is to alleviate some of the stressors that we've been seeing with this increase in people. This is Pete Beidegain, a special operations supervisor for the Border Patrol. One of the major concerns that was brought up numerous times in the meeting really comes down to better communication between federal officials, county officials, and city officials. That's just the beginning of it. The meeting only lasted an hour. It was closed to the press and the public, and it followed a similar meeting. U.S. Senator Kirsten Sinema, you know who she is. She beat out McSally for the Senate position in Arizona after the election, of course. But Friday's meeting was directly organized by Border Patrol officials in Tucson as a goodwill effort to bring together everyone involved in this humanitarian response and come up with a better coordinated response that fits within the law, of course. But one of the big takeaways, Beidegain said, is the possibility of giving nonprofits and city leaders an earlier heads up as soon as border officials notice any increases in the number of migrants they encounter at the border. All this is going to do, Earth Explorers, is just speed up the processing of foreign citizens who disappear into our country. Now, what do they do when they get into our country? Well, they go to work. They go to work for cash because they don't have any ID. They don't belong here. They work illegally in this country. They're in this country illegally. They are citizens of a foreign country. Now, what happens on Friday when they get that cash payment for mowing grass or painting houses or roofing or working in the fields? What do you think they do? They run down to Walmart, they run down to Western Union, and they export some of that money. Well, they're exporting about $20 billion a month. A month. You remember the last segment where we were talking about the Fed and how some banks are in trouble, the lack of liquidity? Do you know why? One of the reasons is the $240 billion a year is being put into a paper shredder. Not in Washington, not in New York. It's being put into a paper shredder on Main Street. When those people are paid, they're supposed to go spend that money at Piggly Wiggly. They're supposed to spend that money at Walmart. They're supposed to spend that money on rent, on a car payment, on gasoline. They're supposed to spend that money in this country or save it. They're not supposed to export it out of the economy. When that money disappears out of the economy, it no longer recycles. It doesn't go back into the cash drawer of the Hardee's. It doesn't go back into the cash drawer at Walmart. It disappears from the country forever. It never comes back. And the bad part is that $240 billion a year, it goes to foreign countries as unearned income. Unearned income, and it doesn't go to their Wall Street. It doesn't go to their New York banks. It goes to Main Street. And what that does is it creates raw inflation. It creates raw inflation the real way. It puts more money into the money supply. And what happens is these people are spending money that they didn't earn. They didn't do anything for it. They produced nothing for it. So what happens is it causes inflation. And we're not talking about 3% or 5% or 10%. We're talking about 10,000%, 50,000% inflation. Because that money goes into these poor communities where a person may only make $2,000, $3,000 a year. But you're giving that person another $2,000 or $3,000 in cash that they didn't earn. So now you've doubled the person's income in the community, and they have nothing. They produce nothing for it. Yeah, so this is a bad thing because it's ruining our economy and it's ruining their economy. So this is low-hanging fruit, President Trump. You need to stop or at least significantly tariff the money that's being sent out of the country. They call it remittances, but let's call it what it is. It's money shredding. You might as well bail it up, put it on a bus, and ship it out of the country. That's illegal. Over $10,000, that's illegal. But they're doing it anyway. So as these people are released, the migrants are issued notices to appear in courts at later date. But we already know 95% of them never return. It doesn't matter. We have no system for finding them and deporting them unless they commit a crime. And even then, if they live in a sanctuary city, it's unknown that we're even going to be notified that they got out of jail. We just put a judge in jail for letting a criminal alien escape out the side door after she convicted him. Yeah, well, now she's serving time. Hello, wake up. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the agency that normally takes custody of these asylum-seeking families once they have been processed, they can't control them anymore. They release them in Tucson, and within a couple of weeks, they're in Boston. They're in San Francisco. They're in Seattle. They're gone. They're never coming back. They disappear into Spanish-only neighborhoods, Spanish-only speaking neighborhoods, Spanish-speaking. And this includes migrants apprehended in the Tucson sector as well as migrants who crossed through the Yuma area. Pima County officials estimate that ICE has released about 7,000 people just in the last 8 months. And it's worse. It's getting worse. It's up to now 1,000 people a week, not 1,000 people a month. So on top of that, Border Patrol officials in El Paso have been busing hundreds of migrants. They call them migrants. They're illegal aliens. Each day to Tucson so they can be released there instead of El Paso, which has also been struggling greatly with the sheer number of migrant families. As you know, if you cross the border and you have a child under 12 years old with you, you're treated as a family. You read the information off the asylum card, I'm afraid of going back home, and you follow the dot the I's and cross the T's. They process the paperwork, and you're in. You're in, and you're never going to be seen again. Now, how do we fix this? The only way to fix this is if you call your congressman and you tell them that we need to have, and don't say the word comprehensive immigration reform, because that's just a buzzword. We need to stop two things. The first thing we need to stop is the anchor baby program. That's how we got Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is an anchor baby. She was born to an Indian and a Haitian, neither one of which were citizens, who had a baby in California. And then as soon as they had the baby, they moved to Canada, where she was raised and went to school. She came back to the U.S., went through grad school, and using other skills that she had, she ended up in Willie Brown's office. And from there, the rest is history. She basically ran unopposed to become Senator Kamala Harris. So I think her political career is over, to tell you the truth. I think she's going to be voted out of office when she comes up for election. I don't think she has a chance of a snowball in hell of getting in the White House at all. These things are going to come out. They've already come out here. They're going to come out in other places. But this needs to end. The anchor baby program needs to end. If you're born in the United States to illegal aliens, you are still a foreign citizen. You are not a citizen of the United States. That's easy to end, and the president could end it with the stroke of a pen. The second thing that we need to do, once that's done, is to end chain migration. Once a person is here and they are given a green card or they are given citizenship, they are able to then import their family from wherever they came from, Somalia or Syria or Honduras or wherever. And the one person that becomes a citizen now becomes 18 to 25 more people that come into this country. You want to know how that works? Go look at Minneapolis. Go look at Minneapolis. President Obama targeted Minneapolis for 70,000 Somali immigrants. He called them refugees. Brought them in, speed-tracked them to citizenship, and now we have one of them weaponized in Congress right now. Ilhan Omar is one of those Somali refugees that came in under Obama's program. Yeah, and they get voting power because they're concentrated in a voting district, and Omar ran unopposed. Nobody ran against her. Same thing with Rashida Tlaib in the Detroit area. She ran unopposed. She's in a heavily Muslim area. She's a Hamas sympathizer, and as a Palestinian, she's creating a lot of problems as a representative of the UN in Congress, anti-American all the way. Once you end these two programs, the chain migration program and the anchor baby program, you've solved half the immigration problem right there, half of it. If you do this, in the chat room, they're talking about a stealth invasion. No, this is not a stealth invasion. It's a planned invasion, and it's been done before. Europe was completely wiped out a couple hundred years ago by this very same process. Immigrants came in. When they got to certain numbers, they revolted, and they killed off everybody. I mean, it was amazing. They were already there. So there aren't 11 million here, by the way. I hate to tell you. There's over 25 million here, and they're from over 100 different countries. And once they're armed, and once they're motivated, and once they're commanded by some charismatic, they are going to rise up inside our country. And then we are going to have the race war that the left has been wanting since 1848. They wanted a race war. They wanted us to fight on terms of race. They've been trying to foment that since 1848, and they're about to get their wish. So in order to avoid this, he says 40 to 60 million. It could be. But I'm just talking about illegals. I'm not talking about immigrants, okay? I think real immigrants that have come and done the process and become American citizens, they're not going to fight against America. They may speak out, but they have free speech. They're allowed to do that. They're covered under our Constitution. But when you come here waving the flag of your country and you say, I don't want to be an American. I want to be a Somali in America. I want to be a Honduran in America. I want to be a Palestinian in America. You see, that doesn't fly here. We're a melting pot, not a punch bowl with a bunch of turds floating around in it, okay? Everybody becomes American, and we all work for one country. Yeah, I get it. I'm trying to respond to the chat room at the same time. The point is, until we finish the wall, and President Trump has promised 400 miles of wall by the 2020 election, I can tell you right now, tonight, I'll make the prediction. If 400 miles of wall or new fencing is built by the fall of 2020, President Trump will be reelected in the biggest landslide in American history. No Democrat will stand a chance. Now, does that mean that all is going to be peace and tranquility, joy and happiness? No, it does not. No, it does not. Because as I outlined with the Fed and the weaponization of money and the rate of money that has been attempted against the Trump administration with 4 rate hikes in 1 year, this is a multi-front war. It's being fought on several different levels. On a cyber level with Twitter, on a monetary level with the Fed, on an immigration level with foreign citizens invading our country and voting in our elections. You could see it with the census question, that this isn't the first time we've asked about citizenship on a census by a long shot. But that's the left is trying to block that because they don't want Americans to know how many foreign citizens are living inside this country. I think you agree with me. I know you agree with me. America has the right to know how many foreign citizens are living inside our country. I'm not talking about people that are already citizens of America. I'm talking about people that are citizens of another country living in America. They send money home to that. They have allegiance to that. They fly that flag. They speak that language. They hold those mores, and they teach those values to their children. And their neighborhood becomes that nation inside our nation without the war and conflict. That's a foreign citizen. That foreign citizen has no rights here. That foreign citizen has no right to vote in our elections. They don't have the right to bear arms. They don't have the right to assemble. They don't have the right to work. They should leave. And the only way to enforce this, the only way to make this work, is to build the wall. Once you build the wall, then you can address the issue of the foreign citizens in this country. If you want to give them amnesty, it'll be the happiest day of their lives. They throw away their Honduran ID and they become American. But if you do that before we build the wall, you will seal the doom of the last great republic in the world, which is America. Don't forget that Contacting in the Desert is coming up May 30th. And listen, it's inexpensive to get there, okay? I just booked my ticket a couple days ago, and I made the round trip, less than $400. So you're going to go on vacation sometime this year. You might as well go when it's not 120 degrees, right? Come out to Indian Wells, California. Come to the biggest disclosure event in the world. And you get to see me, and you get to see all my friends, and we'll have a great time. It's a magnificent resort. Just click on the link, will you? Just go to contactinginthedesert.com/Brooks Agnew. Just click on the link. Even if you don't go, even if you're not even thinking about going, would you grab the link and stick it in your social media for me right now? You've already subscribed. You've already liked tonight's broadcast. You're already participating in YouTube chat. And that's great. I mean, that's a good step in the right direction. Please share that ad right now with your social media and get it out there so we can get more people signed up for my workshop and get things going. We're here every Sunday night, 8 to 11 p.m. And this is where the past meets the future. I'll make every effort to bring you the highest quality content that I can. I will answer your questions live. I have 2 chats going, one on YouTube, one on TFR Live. And I can promise you, you're not going to be treated better anywhere else than right here. I'm sitting in my office, totally transparent. If I pick my nose, you get to see it. So do me a favor and check those out. And also, please check out my books. They're all available at Amazon.com. If you can't see all the titles in the next 30 seconds, no problem. Just go to Amazon, put my name in, and pick them up. Go out and look for the good in people and help it to grow a little every day. And before long, you will have saved the planet.